Vas Om Namo
Yours
Bhagavate
is very good.
Vasudevaya.
Yes.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Text 18. Vidur sat bhipretya dhritarashtrama bhashat rajnirgamyatam shighram pashidam bhayamagatam.
Mahatma Vidur knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra, saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you."
Text 19. प्रतिक्रिया यस्य हे कुत्सिचित् कर्हिचित् प्रभो सा एष भगवान कालः सर्वेषां न समागतः.
The frightful situation cannot.
Sorry, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. The reciters, please can you unmute yourselves? Sorry.
This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as external time, Kali, that has approached us all.
Text 20. Yencheva bhipanoyam prane priyatmerapi janasagyo viyujet kimutanir dhanardibihi.
Whoever is under the influence of the Supreme Kali, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things, such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home.
Text 21. Pitra bhrata sahat putra hata sate viktam vayam atma cha jaryagrasta pargeha mupasase.
Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expanded the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity, and you are living in the home of another.
Text 22. Andhapure vadiro mandpragya shach sampratam vishindanto mandagnihi saraga kaf mudvahan.
You have been blind from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you are coughing up mucus.
Text 23. Aho mahiyasi jantor jivita shat yatha bhavan bhima pavirajitam pindam adate graha palvat.
Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog, and are eating remnants of food given by Bhima.
Text 24. Agnirishtodatascha garodarascha duštitah hritam kshetram dhanam yesham taddater asubhihi kiyat.
There is no need to live in a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you try to kill by arson and poisoning. You are insulted. You are also insulted one of their wives and absurd the kingdom and wealth.
Text 25. Tasyapi tavo dehoyam kripanasya jijivisho pareti anichato jirno jarya vasa siva eva.
Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live, even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment.
Text 26. Gatswarthamimam deham virekto muktbandanaha avigyat gatirjahyad savedhir udharhirat.
He is called undisturbed, who does to an unknown, remote place and freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless.
Text 27. Yasavat परतो वे जाते निर्वेदात्मवान हृदि कृत्वा हरिं गेहात् प्रवजेतस् नरोत्तमः.
He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands either by himself or from others the vicely and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart.
Text 28. अथोदीचम दिशम यातु सवेर ज्ञात गतिर भवान इतोर्वाक प्रयाश काला पुंसाम गुण विकर्षण.
Please, therefore, leave for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men.
Text 29. एवं राजा विदुरनानुजेन प्रज्ञा चक्षुर्बोधित आजमिनः छित्त्वा स्वेषु स्नेह पाषाण्ड्रनिन्मो निश्चक्राम्भत्र सन्दर्शित धातवः.
Thus, Maharaj Yudhishthira, the scion of the family of Ajmadan, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, Brajna, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus, he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother Vidura.
Text 30. पतिं प्रियांतं सुबलस्य पुत्री पतिव्रता चानुजगाम साधवी हिमालयं न्यसत दंडत प्रहर्षं मनस्वीनामीव सत संप्रहारः.
The gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of King Subla of Gandhar or Gangadhar, followed her husband, seeing that he was going to the Himalayan mountains. Light of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy.
Text 31. अजात शत्रु कृतमेत्रो उताग्नि वीरपानत्वा तिलगो भूमि रूकमय ग्रहम प्रविष्टो गुरुवंदनाय न चापश्य पित्रो सोबलिम च.
Maharaj Yudhishthira, whose enemy was never born, performed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire sacrifice to the sun god, and offering the obeisances, grains, cows, land, and gold to the brahmanas. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncle and or aunt, the daughter of King Subla.
Text 32. तत्र संजय सामीस्नम प्रपच्छोद्विग्न मानसः गावलगणे को नस्तातो वृदो हीनश्च नेत्रयो.
Maharaj Yudhishthir, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, "O Sanjaya, where is our uncle, who is old and blind?"
Text 33. अम्बा च हत्पुत्रता पितृव्या कवगतः सुहृत् अपि मये कृतप्रज्ञे हतबन्धु स भार्यया आंशं समानः शमलं गण्डायां दुःखितोपतत्.
Where is my well-wisher Uncle Vidura and Mother Gandhari, who is very who's very affiliated due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra, who also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very grateful. Did he, therefore, take my offences very seriously, and along with his wife drown himself in the Ganges?
Text 34. पितृयुपर्ते पांडो सर्वान् सुहृद शिशून् अरक्षतां व्यसनतः पितृव्यो कव गतावितः.
When my father Bandhu fell down and we were all small children, these two uncles gave us protection from all kinds of calamities. They were always good well-wishers. Alas, where have they gone from here?
Text 35. Sutta vacha कृपया स्नेहा वैकल्यात् सुतो विरह कृष्ण कर्षिता आत्मेश्वरम कष्णो न प्रत्याहति पीडितः.
So the Goswami said, because of compassion and mental agitation, Sanjaya, not having seen his own master Dhritarashtra, was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaj Yudhishthir.
Text 36. विमृज्य श्रुणि पाणिभ्यां विष्टभयात्मात्मना अजाशत्रुं प्रत्युचे प्रभोपादा वनुस्मरन्.
First, he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence and wiping away his tears, and thinking of the feet of his master Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhishthira.
Text 37. Sanjay uvacha naham vedvayavasitam pitrovah kulnandan gandharyava mahabaho mushitosmi mahatmabhi.
Sanjaya said, my dear descendant of the Guru dynasty, I have no information of the determination of your two uncles and Gandhari. O king, I have been cheated by those great souls. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Girish Prabhu and Dharmesh Prabhu. That was wonderful recitation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
I'll make you host now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, you can see my screen, I guess, no?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, now, yes, we can, Prabhuji.
Okay. Great. So, once again, thank you, Girish Prabhu and Dharmendra Prabhu, for your recitations and reading the translations. That sets a good overview of the background of what we are going to discuss today. So today we will be discussing 113, 17 and 18. So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtaki Yam Pravrajeta Manupeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahaka Tara Ajo Ava Utreti Tanmayatayo Taravo Bhinedus Tam Sarvabhutardayam Munimanatosmi. So let's chant the verse. Evam gruheshu saktanam pramattanam tadihaya atyakramada vidnyatah kalah paramadustaraha. So let's read the translation because we have two verses today. So we will go one by one. Unsurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. I am now happy. I have everything in order. My bank balance is quite enough. I can now give my children enough estate. I am now successful. The poor beggar sannyasis depend on God, but they come to beg from me. Therefore, I am more than the Supreme God. These are some of the thoughts which engross the insanely attached householder who is blind to the passing of eternal time. Our duration of life is measured, and no one is able to enhance it even by a second against the scheduled time ordained by the Supreme Will. Such valuable time, especially for the human being, should be cautiously spent because even a second passed away imperceptibly cannot be replaced. even in exchange of thousands of golden coins amassed by hard labor. Every second of human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to the problems of life. That is, repetition of birth and death and revolving in the cycle of 8.4 million different species of life. The material body, which is subject to birth and death, diseases and old age, is the cause of all sufferings of the living beings. Otherwise, the living being is eternal. He is never born, nor does he ever die. Foolish persons forget this problem. They do not know at all how to solve the problems of life, but become engrossed in temporary family affairs, not knowing that eternal time is passing away imperceptibly, and that their measured duration of life is diminishing every second, without any solution to the big problem, namely repetition of birth and death, disease and old age. This is called illusion. But such illusion cannot work on one who is awake in the devotional service of the Lord. Yudhishthir Maharaj and his brothers, the Pandavas, were all engaged in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna, and they had very little attraction for the illusory happiness of this material world. As we have discussed previously, Maharaj Yudhishthir was fixed in the service of the Lord Mukunda, the Lord who can afford salvation, and therefore he had no attraction even for such comforts of life as are available in the kingdom of heaven, because even the happiness obtained in the planet Brahmalok is also temporary and illusory. Because the living being is eternal, he can be happy only in the eternal abode of kingdom of God, Paravyoma, from which no one returns to this region of repeated birth and death, disease and old age. Therefore, any comfort of life or any material happiness which does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal living being. One who understands this factually is learned, and such a learned person can sacrifice any amount of material happiness to achieve the desired goal known as Brahma Sukham, or absolute happiness. Real transcendentalists are hungry for this happiness, and as a hungry man cannot be made happy by all comforts of life minus food stuff, life minus food stuff. So the man hungry for eternal absolute happiness cannot be satisfied by any amount of material happiness. Therefore, the instruction described in this verse cannot be applied to Maharaj Yudhishthir or his brothers and mother. It was meant for persons like Dhritarashtra, for whom Vidura came especially to impart lessons. Very, very brilliant explanation and the insight on this verse by our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. So let's see what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says about this particular verse, because he has given commentary on this verse for 18th verse. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur hasn't given a commentary. So the translation, he says, for this verse: insurmountable time overtook those attached to their houses and intoxicated with household affairs without their knowledge. Commentary, he says, this verse is a criticism of people other than Yudhishthira and his family present at that time. It has already been said that he was unattached to everything except the Lord. Kshuditasya Yathetare. He was completely attached to the Lord and nothing else. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:12:6. We have seen that verse earlier. Apipala Dharmaraja, Pitruvat Ranjayan Praja, Pitruvat Ranjayan Praja, Nispruha Sarva Kamebhya, Krishna Padanu Sevaya. So that was the verse which is the actually description of Yudhishthir Maharaj by Suta Goswami. Let's move on to the next verse. We'll go through that. Vidurastadavipreत्य pretya dhritarashtrama rajnirgamya gatam shighram pashyedam bhayamagatam. Translation: Mahatma Vidura knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra, saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you." Cruel purport by Srila Prabhupada again. Cruel death cares for no one, for none. But he, Dhritarashtra, or even Maharaj Yudhishthir. Therefore, spiritual instruction as was given to old Dhritarashtra was equally applicable to younger brother Yudhishthir. As a matter of fact, everyone in the royal palace, including the king and his brothers and mother, was raptly attending the lectures, but it was known to Vidura that his instructions were especially meant for Dhritarashtra, who was too materialistic. The word Rajan is especially addressed to Dhritarashtra significantly. Dhritarashtra was the eldest son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed of Hastinapur. But because he was from his rightful, and his disappointment was somewhat compensated by the death of Pandu, his younger brother. His younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhritarashtra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the factual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons, headed by Duryodhan. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother.
You're on mute, Prabhu. We can't hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we read up to this. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother-in-law Shakuni. But everything failed by the will of the Lord, and at the last stage, even after losing everything, men and money, he wanted to remain as king. Being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthir, Maharaj Yudhishthir, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhritarashtra in royal honor, and Dhritarashtra was happily passing away his numbered days in the illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthir. Vidura, as a saint and as the duty-bound, affectionate younger brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from his slumber of disease and old age. Vidura therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, which he was actually not. Everyone is the servant of eternal time, and therefore no one can be king in this material world. King means the person who can order. The celebrated English king wanted to order time and tide, but the time and tide refused to obey his order. Therefore, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly reminded of this false position and of the actual fearful happenings which had actually approached him at that time. Vidura asked him to get out immediately if he wanted to be saved from the fearful situation which was approaching him fast. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthir in that way because he knew that a king like Maharaj Yudhishthir is aware of all the fearful situations of so very important verses and very important chapter, because in this chapter three personalities meet three great personalities. So who meets whom here? The person we are talking about is Vidura. So there, in the beginning of this chapter, there is a first meeting. So who can tell us that which is the first meeting in this chapter which is described? There are three important meetings here. Anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Is it Vidura meeting Maitreya Muni?
Yes,
And then
that's the first.
Coming, he came back, and then he was meeting all the family members, and then lastly he was trying to convince his brother to trust. I don't know. That is my thinking.
Yes. That's the second meeting. Vidura meeting his quote-unquote spiritual master for this particular episode is Maitreya Muni. So he listens to Maitreya Muni and gets the... Actually, it is what he hears from Maitreya Muni is Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literature. Then he meets all his family members. He comes back from the pilgrimage and he meets all the family members. And especially he comes to Hastinapur to meet whom? To Dhritarashtra, to give him the advice. And there is a third meeting which will come later. And that meeting is Yudhishthira meeting Narad Muni. So that will come in a later part. So let's start. We'll chant our invocation, Mangala Charana, and then we'll start our discussions. Om Ajnantimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Saadvaitam Saavadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaurav Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Ram Krishna Ram Dharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaru Karuna Avataro Yantah Pravishya Mama Vachamimam Prasuttam Sanjeevayatya Akhila Shakti Swadana Anyamscha Hastacharana Shravanatvagadin Pranan Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam. I am getting a message here that my connection is unstable. Is everyone able to hear me properly?
It does go.
No, Prabhu.
Yeah, I think it might be easy if you log off and log on again, possibly.
Okay, I will do that. Sure. So I will stop sharing and leave. Is this better now
Yep, that's fine, Prabhu.
than earlier? Okay, thank you very much, bro. So again, I will share the screen. Oh, okay. Jyoti Mataji, can you make me host, please?
Yes, Prabhuji, I've done it.
Okay, thank you. So we're here in the first purport. In the first verse, it's the importance of time, and our life is nothing but a time. Means in the third canto, especially the commentary by our acharyas. Third canto is a very, very technical canto. It's Lord Kapil Dev. He's describing the Sankhya Yoga. He's explaining the Sankhya Yoga to his mother, Devavati. And in that, there is a creation before that. Even Lord Kapil Dev explains the Sankhya Yoga. From second canto onwards, there is an explanation of the creation of this material world, and it's second and third canto gets very, very technical. It's quite fascinating. So what those cantos and the commentaries by our acharyas, what it tells is the material body we have, the sthula sharira, which is the sharir. I can see a camera of Dharmendra Prabhu, so he's there, and people can see me. So both of us, what you all see is the image of our sthula sharir, our material body, our gross body. And then what is that material body? Which is nothing but an instrument to perform our duties and to fulfill our desires. Correct? So what is this material body made of? Panchamahabhuta: Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now, apart from this, there are three more elements. What are those? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So what those three things, mind, intelligence, and false ego, what is that? Mana, buddhi, and ahankar. what that is made of? What that makes? Anyone? What does this do? These three things: mind, intelligence, and false ego. Mana, buddhi, ahankar. What does it do? So this is the material body, and then we have something called
Subtle body.
yes. Thank you, Mati.
Thank you. Thank you.
So subtle body is our called Karana Sharira. So Lord has given us the Karana Sharira because he has when the soul wanted to enjoy separately from in Vaikuntha Lok, when the soul had that desire to enjoy separately, there is a sense of envy in the heart that while Lord is the supreme enjoyer, I should be the one. And at that time, Lord awarded something called mind, because the soul will be alone. Now that lonely soul will need what? To take the decisions, yes or no. And that's what mind does. It does the toggle decisions, yes or no. Like binary. Those who are from computer field, we have a binary, 1 and 0. Soul does yes or no. So mind does 1 and 0, yes or no. So that's the job of mind. It is coming from mode of goodness. Then apart from that, obviously there has to be a scrutiny of what is right, what is wrong, what is the cost benefit analysis, and so on and so forth. And that's where Lord gave us intelligence, that is buddhi. And obviously because there was a sense of envy that I am somebody special, so then there is a false ego, which is ahankar, and there is a presiding deity for everything. So for buddhi, the presiding deity is Lord Pradyumna. For false ego, the presiding deity, because false ego is very rigid, very, very heavy. So the Tattva is earth, the Prithvi, and the presiding deity is Lord Shankarshan. What does that mean, presiding deity? The requirements and the fulfillment, the power of those Tattva, those principles, are fulfilled by the Lord himself in his expansions of that presiding deity, because that is not with us, that is across the whole material world. Those principles are there, those are already always available. And the third one here is mana, buddhi, ahankar. But at the same time, what happens is, as soon as we, for example, if we get up from the sleep, what happens? First thing we see is I exist. Yes, that is the presiding deity is Vasudeva, which is the preliminary expansion of the Lord. Why we are discussing this? Because this is how the Lord has created this material world with all the perfect arrangement to fulfill our desires. How, what we desire and what we deserve. Accordingly, he has given this. Now we came to this material world, we received the human body in this particular birth, and now we are fulfilling our desires with that Karana Sharir is a sprout of various desires. I want to enjoy in this way, I want to enjoy in that way. And there is always it's like a hard disk. There is lot of sanskaras, there is lot of impressions in our mind that there is a sense of what you call how to enjoy. We have that, and how that is calculated and how that is weighed, whether to do it or not to do it, is by the intelligence. And then mind is, yes, I want to do it, and that's the decision, and person goes ahead and does all sorts of illusory things that, yes, I will have a car, I will have a family, I will have this, I will have that, and this is how my enjoyment, my sense of enjoyment will increase, etc. The whole arrangement of those 8 principles with this body, there is something called Sukshma Sharir. So we talked about Sthula Sharir, which is this one, what we all can see. Second one we saw is Karana Sharir. So this is a Karana Sharir, this is Sthula Sharir, and beyond that there is a soul who has desires, and then there is something in the middle which is called Sukshma Sharir, or the micro body. So Sthula Sharir is all gross body, Sukshma Sharir is called micro body, And then there is a subtle body which is called Karana Sharir. Karana means reason. So there is always something which is coming, the Karan, why I have this body. And that's how we have the desires here. Those desires need to be fulfilled. So this is the instrument which is our soul. Our soul has all the senses, and that is why our gross body has senses, and that's what we use for fulfillment of our gratification. The micro body is the one which is in the middle, and which we have every person has multiple micro bodies, and that micro body is working for example, if I say I want to buy a house, then there is a micro body created with certain requirements from my gross body and subtle body, and then micro body will work in that direction. Now I want to buy a house, and then what it should be, and then it should be a 4-bedroom house, and I need to have this facility, that facility, so on and so forth. So that micro body is working. It's a job given. It's like we can imagine in the robotics, uh, one person is creating various types of robots to do their job. So you can imagine that our micro body works something similar. So another micro body, I want to buy a car. Then what type of car? What is my budget? So on, and then that micro body will work in that direction. So like that, we have multiple micro bodies. So desire comes from the Karan Sharir. Micro body does the job of how to facilitate and what to work on, and the gross body, which is our this Sthula Sharir, it keeps working to fulfill the desires coming or the taking shape through that micro body. How the whole thing is happening, and we can imagine why we are discussing this, that as our consciousness gets developed, the Anandamaya, then what you have studied up to the Annamaya, and then up to the Anandamaya. How to fulfill our desire of food, how to fulfill our different desires of what we want to see, and everything up to the lust and all that. That is all working in this particular manner of creating, sprouting the desires, creating the micro body, and our gross body is working for that reason. So now you can actually fit everything in this particular dice, that why somebody decorates their body, why somebody works on the body to have good stamina, why somebody works on their body to present it in such a way, why they have different facades, and that is the reason behind that is the micro body. We all do that till the end of our life. Through what's the instrument there? Well, it's the time. I have this much span of time, approximately. We all know that I will live this much, and in this span of time I will this much. It means I will take education up to this, and then approximately, and then I will start working, I will fulfill my desires and get married and have children and so on and so forth and whatever. And then finally, at this particular age, it's my time to retire. Life's final exam will come. If we are in devotional service, we hope and pray that we will remember the Lord, and that's it, job done. So that's how our whole planning is. And here we can see Dhritarashtra is very much into this particular fitting. He had his micro body. He's thinking that I will fulfill my desires of being a king. My son will become the king, and then he will be the one. And this is how my idea of ruling the kingdom, ruling the earth, will get fulfilled. But did he deserve that? No, because he was not only he was physically blind, but he was spiritually blind as well, and that was the primary reason. Because in a history of humanity, we hear that there were some of the kings who were blind, or who were visually impaired, but they ruled. There is I don't remember the names, but there were certain kings who were visually impaired. In this particular case, Dhritarashtra, he was not allowed to rule, with, not just because he was blind, but it was, we can say that it's instead of going to all the details, it was an arrangement that he should not have ruled. Of course, as per the scriptural injunctions, a blind person should not be the king. Yes, that is there. But apart from that, if he was a devotee of the Lord, and if he was a proper, means in the beginning, if he would have shown the right approach, we don't know what the case would have been. And here Dhritarashtra is saying that, yes, I want to be the king, and that was his attachment. In the next verse, what we can see, Brahma Sukham, that is one important point we need to discuss here. There is a verse in the 5th canto, I think it's the 6th chapter. Yeah, 5th canto, 6th chapter, and the first verse. Let's see if we can find that. Third, fourth, fifth, or Rishabdev, the activities of Rishabdev. Yeah, 5th chapter, 6th. Yeah, so this is the verse which is basically talking about the Brahma Saukyam. Rishabha Uvacha, what he says here. Nayam deho deha bhajam nruloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbhajam ye tapodivyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhet yasmat brahma saukhyena tvanantam. What he says here is, Lord Rishabdev told his sons, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. It's a very, very famous, very powerful verse. The purport is also very, very insightful, very beautiful, and which gives the very important insight of this very important verse from Bhagavad Gita. Let's read that. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So, what is most important point of all the background study we are doing here, this particular verse and this importance of this verse from Bhagavad Gita, very, very important, that Bhakti Yoga should be the topmost goal. Yoga means connection, Bhakti is devotion. Connecting ourselves to the devotional service should be the topmost goal. of every human being. And that's why a human being should try to live in a different way and should not try to imitate dogs and hogs. The alternative is mentioned. Human life is meant for tapasya, austerity, and penance. By tapasya, one can get out of material clutches. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, his happiness is guaranteed eternally. By taking to Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, one's existence is purified. The living entity is seeking happiness life after life, but he can make a solution to all his problems simply by practicing Bhakti Yoga. Then he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So that's the background behind this verse. Yeah. Let's go back to our original verse, what we are discussing here. So, kingdom of God is said here, paravyoma. What's the verse from 15th chapter which describes the how that paravyoma is, how the kingdom of God is, how his realm is? Can anyone tell us that? Where does Lord say about his abode in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Shall we go to that? Let's go. And this is chapter 15. And here he talks about the tree, the Ashwatha, which is a banyan tree. And here is the verse. Yeah, let's go here. न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशांको न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम. So here Vidura, in this 17th and 18th verse, he is telling Dhritarashtra that you should be looking to go back to Godhead and not anywhere else. This is not the home, and that's the description of the home. Who is Vidura here? What is the original identity of Vidura?
Is Yamraj?
Yamraj, exactly.
Incarnation of Jamraj.
Yes. So there is a pastime that why Vidura Yamraj incarnated as Vidura because he has a very interesting job. His job is to check all the miscreants from this material world and punish them. So he had a desire that I want to have an association of my Lord, and that was fulfilled because he gave some really strange punishment to one of the rishi, and that rishi cursed him, and that's how he became Vidura in all the humility. And we know rest of the pastimes here. So in this particular verse, Lord is telling that how his abode is the Vaikuntha planet, and that is his the supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world, and that's what Vidura is telling Dhritarashtra here. So, of course, this particular verse has a very, very detailed purport. Prabhupada talks about Upanishads, and then there are very fascinating insights Prabhupada has given here, how other Vedic literature gives us the details of what Lord's eternal abode is in the Vaikuntha planets. So let's go back here. So this is what basically the 17th verse is, and yeah, let's go to the 18th verse. Just stick it back here, and that's the 18th verse. Yeah. Viduras tadabhipretya dhritarashtrama bhashata Rajan nirgamya tam shighram pashyedam bhayamagatam. So what is Vidura? What is the insight? Mahatma Vidura. Brahmabhutam prasannatma nashochati nakanchati. So Vidura was not interested in any kind of complications of whose side he should take and everything, and that's why he went for the pilgrimage. Mahatma, perfect decision at a perfect time. He had no hankering and no lamentation. He has experienced all the humiliation from Duryodhan, Karna, and all the wicked people from Shakuni and all that. But here, his elder brother. Now, there is another interesting point here which we need to address. That as per the scriptural injunction, as per the law, or in the scriptures, a Shudra should not be advising the king. King can take advice only from the Brahmana, but not from Shudra. And here Vidura is quote unquote, in this particular situation, he is addressed as a Shudra because his mother was, his father was Kshatriya and his mother was Shudra. She was a Dasi. So that's why he's addressed here as Dasiputra. But he is giving advice to the king, and second, he is giving advice to his elder brother, which is also against the scriptures. A youngster should always take advice from the elders. So that's what scriptures say. But it's here everything is going other way around. Why? The reason is very straightforward. The first, I think we have discussed a few times earlier, there are different sets of rules in the material world. The first set of rule is called Artha Shastra. Yeah. Even before that, it is Samaj Shastra, means how people should interact with each other, with very, very general guidelines, that how the greeting should be and so on and all. The second part is the Artha Shastra, how the economy of this world should run, that it should be ethical, every varna, what they should do and how much money they can gather, extra money if they get, where should they give it or where should they store it, and everything is given in Artha Shastra. So that is the first code of conduct, a set of how the money should be dealt with, how to earn and how to spend and everything. So that is called Artha Shastra. Then it comes the Niti Shastra. Niti Shastra is the moral code of conduct. Example is one of the verses from Niti Shastra is Niti Shastra. Actually, the language of Niti Shastra is a bit heavy. Yasham na vidya na tapo na danam na jnanam na shilam na guno na dharma te mritloke bhuvibhara bhuta manushyarupen mrgascharanti. One of the verses, I think it's 13th or 14th verse from the Niti Shastra. Yasham na vidya, the people who have, those who don't have a vidya, those who don't have a desire to gain the knowledge. Na tapo, those who don't want to do the austerities. Na tapo na danam, those who don't have generosity. Na shilam, those people who don't have a proper character as per their varnashram. Nanam na shilam. And those who don't have a proper knowledge of how to behave and how to live and how to leave the world. So those who don't have a proper knowledge. Yesham na nidya, na tapo na danam, na jnanam, na shilam, na guno na dharmaha. They don't have a proper qualities of what to use at what time. They don't have the sense of using the qualities and acquiring the qualities. Na guno na dharmaha. And the last part is they don't have the understanding of right religious code of conduct. Te mrityuloke bhuvibhara bhutaha. On this material world, on this earth, they are just a weight. Manushyarupena mrgascharanti. In the form of human beings, they are just loitering here and there like animals. So that is the mrgascharanti. Like deers, they just eat in a very fearful way. They keep looking and they keep eating and they reproduce. That's what they do. So that's what Niti Shastra is saying. So that is the moral code of conduct. And the third part which comes here is a religious code of conduct, which is Varnashram Dharma, how everything should happen. That comes the religious code of conduct. The religious code of conduct is given in our scriptures. How to live in the material world is given in our Vedic scriptures, in our Vedic literature. The interesting part of Vedic literature is the same Vedic literature gives us how to live in this world properly, and the same Vedic literature, if the person has elevated consciousness, has a higher consciousness, how to leave this world properly, how to be detached from this world properly. So that's the same literature gives us that understanding as well. So that is the higher mode of code of conduct, which is the religious code of conduct, social code of conduct, economic code of conduct, moral code of conduct, which is Niti Shastra, religious code of conduct, Dharma Shastra, and then comes the final code of conduct, which is called Bhakti Shastra, devotional code of conduct. In devotion, if the person is following the devotional code of conduct, you can overrule all other code of conducts. That's what our scriptures say. And here, why Vidura is giving that advice to his elder brother Dhritarashtra, because Vidura is telling that every single word for in the perspective of the devotional code of conduct in a Bhakti Shastra. Yeah. And that is why he is eligible. He can overrule because he's following the higher principle of devotional code of conduct. And that's the reason behind it. So this is what the verse is. Oh, I think I'm talking a lot here. It's already 8:47. So here he's giving cruel death cares for no one but Dhritarashtra or even Maharaj Yudhishthir. Here, as we saw in the Sarartha Darshini Bhashya by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Vidura is not saying anything to Maharaj Yudhishthir, though he's addressing the whole assembly, but this is specifically meant for Dhritarashtra, because it is time for him to retire and then do the rightful thing for his age and for his time. And that's where we will see later on that Dhritarashtra retires. He goes to the forest, performs the austerities, Tapodivyam Putrakayana Sattvam, the verse we saw, and then he goes back to Godhead. So that's what this particular verse is telling us, how Vidura is telling Dhritarashtra, what is your duty? And he says it in a fairly direct way. We can say a bit harsh words, that now you're living like a dog, and then you should be following your duty of devotional service. That's what he's saying here, and that's what. And the later part here Prabhupada is giving very, very important point, that if the person is a devotee and they're using their precious gift, which is time, for this particular body to use in the devotional service only, which is, we saw that verse earlier, Krishna Padanusevaya, for the Maharaj Yudhishthir, then they are situated in the right consciousness. Therefore, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly reminded of this false position and the factful, fearful happenings which had already approached him at that time: birth, death, old age, and disease. So what he was coming to: old age, disease, and death. It was nearing to Dhritarashtra. Vidura asked him to get out immediately if he wanted to be saved from fearful situation which was approaching him fast, which is nothing but which is death. millions of scorpion bites if you are attached to this human body at the time of that death. Millions of scorpion bites, that kind of pain one experiences, and then only a person leaves this body. And if they are situated in the wrong consciousness of material consciousness, they will experience the same thing again, that same pain of taking birth, old age, same pain of various diseases, and same pain of death. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthir in that way because he knew that a king like Maharaj Yudhishthir is aware of all the fearful situation of this flimsy world and would take care of himself in due course, even though Vidura might not be present at that time. Now, the fascinating part is Maharaj Yudhishthir is none other than the son of Yamraj, and he's the son of Vidura. In that transcendental perspective, and that's why Maharaj Yudhishthir is accepting that advice from his transcendental father in this particular situation. But this is meant for Dhritarashtra, and that's what those two verses we talked about. I think we have discussed everything in whatever needed for this. Are there any questions or any comments or any additions? If not, then we can stop here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So
Hare
you
Krishna.
talked about micro bodies. Can you please tell a little bit more on that?
Oh, sure. Okay. We talked about the gross body. We talked about the subtle bodies, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So let's take an example that I want to search for a better job. Yeah. So better job is, for example, if I want to become a vice president of some company, then that is the desire coming out of my subtle body. Not exactly even subtle body. I want to have a better job because I want to earn more money. That is the main desire which is sprouting from the subtle body. Then that is getting expanded in the subtle body, and then slowly that creation of micro body has started. How that will work now? That micro body has all the elements of the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, but it is specifically dedicated to fulfill that desire of getting a better job or earning more money. Then my micro body will start weighing the situation, saying, am I eligible for this vice president job? No. Can I be eligible in near future? Maybe yes. How? I need to have this certain skills. I need to have that charisma. I need to have proper contacts. I need to prepare for the interview or the discussions and so on and so forth. So that is my first criteria, which I will prepare. Once that is done, then I will start working on every single point in that criteria. Am I qualified enough? No. What are the qualifications I need? I need to have this qualification. Yes. Then I will start working in that direction. Do I have right contacts? No, I don't have. Then I need to prepare for the right contacts. Who are the right people through whom I can approach? What kind of refinement in my personality I need to have? And many more things. So microbody is basically working on every single point. How that microbody is doing that? Using the right span of time, using the right mode of what you call my intelligence, and right availability of my gross body, I will start taking tuitions. I will start going somewhere else. I'll start doing what you call discussions with my friends and my contacts. So that is all happening because of the expanded desires in the microbody, and that's how microbody works. Once I get the vice president's job, then my microbody, that particular microbody, is either dissolved, or if there is further desire, then it will continue to work again. And then if after becoming the vice president, if I have some other desire, the new microbody will be created, and there will be innumerable microbodies in a person who has the material desires, and we all have. That's what the explanation is. That enough, or you're looking for anything?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. I am amazed how much you are telling about this microbody, and this is from the Bhagavatam, and it's like thousands or millions of years old. But nowadays, people are using it in another term. You know, here in Canada, they have the internal family system, which explain exactly what you have just explained. And they're giving people courses when people are sick, when people have desires, when people have any problem. They have put it in another word, but they are still using from the Bhagavatam. I find it so amazing, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, because the other day itself, my son-in-law and myself, we were discussing about this internal family system, and I was thinking, yes, there should be something there. And today, I'm so grateful that you are enlightening us on these, on all these microsystems, microbody, and also thank you very much for the nice class, Prabhuji. A lot to take, and I was just thinking of one thing. When Vidura comes to take Dhritarashtra away and telling Dhritarashtra that you don't have much time, you don't know when you're going to die, it sounds like Shringi Rishi has cursed Parikshit Maharaj. He has only 7 days. Yes, go out. And here Vidura is telling the same thing. Sometimes we think that, okay, we don't have enough time, but there's a long story, and some other time I will tell how and when, and everybody knows when we are going to die, but we don't take in full, because nowadays, in today's life, you know, some people may know this time and this date I'm going to die, a specific time they know because of the euthanization, you know, people go and euthanize, so they know what is going to happen, but they don't need to spiritualize. And that is also a long process. It's not like, oh, I decide to like commit suicide in a way, but it's a planning. It's a lot of work. Like somebody want to euthanize, they will have to put an application. They will have to wait for medical representative come and check them if they are sane or they are insane of their mind. Then they will be put like so many things. They will be asked. You have to do your will. You have to do pay your whatever you owe people. You have to check your funeral home. They give you a month. After that, they will give you a date and a time. So if people have this knowledge that yes, I have to do something, but no, they don't have this knowledge from our shastras how to die. Parikshit Maharaj, he teaches us how to die. So this is very great here.
Yes.
So Gura also is acting in the same way. Very nice, Prabhuji. I enjoyed it really. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Mataji. Thank you very much for your addition. So, in Bhagavad Pravaha, by one of my favorite personalities, he's the Brahmachari. He gives the very, very fascinating insight of this particular part. He says that with the war over, Vidura returned to Hastinapur not to stay there comfortably, but to enlighten his elder brother and his old blind brother Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra had been obsessed with the kingdom, and for that sake, he need to live such a degraded and undignified life on the charity of those whom you tried to kill several times. Death cannot be counteracted by anyone. Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead. Your body is overtaken by invalidity and showing symptoms of imminent death. It is shame that you are still hanging on to palace comforts. Better quit this place immediately. Dhritarashtra, chastised by his saintly brother, came to his senses and left home. So, Vidura, how a saintly person behaves. Gaurang Darshan Prabhu writes here that later that having his mission accomplished, Vidura also departed from Hastinapura quietly. He received a very wonderful welcome from everyone in the Hastinapur, but when it was time to leave, he never wanted any kind of glories, so he just left very quietly. And then the punchline comes here: the purpose of saints visiting householders is only to enlighten them and not to enjoy their opulence. Unable to find Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura, who left his palace without anyone's notice, Yudhishthira felt morose and condemned himself. So that is the quality of the saintly person, whether you Vidura or Yudhishthira Maharaj. And that's what later on it comes to the timely retirement and how Narad Muni gives the advice to Yudhishthira Maharaj and so on. That will come later. But anyway, thank you very much, Indulekha Mataji, for your
Thank you, Prabhuji.
insightful.
Thank you so much. You know, I just wish somebody comes and kick me out of the house at some point. Then I know, like Vidura, it's amazing. It's so beautiful how he did that for his brother. The love he had for his brother. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your encouragement. Any other questions? We are already 2 o'clock past 9 o'clock. 2 minutes past 9 o'clock. So are there any questions?
If I can ask one question, if that's okay.
Of course.
You were talking about Dhritarashtra and Vidura saying, you need to go back to Godhead. And so what my question is that once you go back to Godhead, how can you fall from the spiritual world?
Okay. Now, as Lord says that once you come back to me, you will not return here. Now, your question is very valid, very important, but at the same time, we need to understand that it is the most merciful Lord who is making sure that we will not be coming back to miseries. He wants us to remain in the right consciousness. That's one thing. Obviously, if the child is stupid enough, and if they have first burned their fingers by putting it in a fire, and then later on, if they don't learn their lesson and if they want to do it again, obviously we can come back to the material and start experiencing birth, death, old age, and disease. But as Lord says that if at all, if there is any sense of individual enjoyment, if at all it appears, Lord will make sure that, and that's what our acharyas are saying, that look, you have already experienced it, you were so miserable, and now you want to go back. So that's where he's giving that assurance in Bhagavad Gita, Tadhama paramam mama, yadgatvana nivartante tadhama paramam mama. When you will come back to me, you will have that proper understanding of, yes, I can't be happy without my Lord. So that's what the explanation is.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that, to be honest, is because if you think of it contextually, when this is the sort of discussion that I have with my children, they say, well, hang on, if that's happened, you've got J and Vijay who came down, so how can you make a mistake in the spiritual world, if the spiritual world is said to be sort of one that you wouldn't make mistakes within, and secondly, when you do make a mistake, how can you fall back down? Um, and even so, when they made the choices, and I can understand what you're going to say, is that this was the Lord wanting to, you know, his pastime effectively. But even when they made a choice, right, to come back and have only the handful of births and rebirths because they wanted to go back to Krishna so quickly, but they didn't go back to Krishna in the sense they went to his effulgence and they had to take another birth, and so do they make the right choice ultimately? Because it took the longevity of that was so, you know, they had to take birth in Kali Yuga
You're
as
right.
well again.
Agree.
So yeah.
Now, I don't know if we have enough time, but I will try to explain it in a short. The thing is that in the spiritual world, Jay and Vijay, Lord's paraphernalia is Lord himself. That's what the first and the foremost thing we need to understand. Um, that's why Lord Arjun says that Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashwatam Divyam Adidevam Majam Vibhu. So though they are separate entities, for in our terms they are Jivatma, but at the same time, because they are the eternal servants of the Lord, and when Lord wants to uh, give us the fallen conditioned souls certain lessons, um, all his pastimes, all what his whole arrangement has to be at that grand level. Somebody like me, if he tries to become a kind of demon, it will be so miserable that it will not even worth giving any importance to that. So that demon or a devotee has to be somebody who is at that grand level. So that's first thing. Now, that is the reason Lord is there as a Chaitya Guru in everyone's heart, and then he gives the what do you call ideas or the impetus of what to behave at what point of time. Jay and Vijay and the all the Ashwini Kumar, when they went there, that was at the same time there was a prayer of from the Mother Earth, that there were certain miscreants even at the time in the time of Satyayug, and that's where she had her prayers. And then the first that time the Lord need what do you call, he created the situations in such a way that his devotees took birth as a Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and then the pastime started in from Satyayug to Kali Yuga. Now, you can say that yes, Shishupal and Dantavakra, they were merged in the body of the Lord, but that is for the Sayuja Mukti, what people are thinking about. The actual Mukti happened during the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if we say 7 times devotee or 3.5 times rivals, so that was the actual trade-off between the Jai Vijay's, whether I should be your devotee or I should be the demon. And Lord wanted that mood of chivalry, that fight, to give the lessons to us, the fallen conditioned souls. And that's where this whole pastime you can see that in a context of a jigsaw puzzle, how that fits in. Now, every time this happens, yes, sometimes it is Jai Vijay, sometimes it's the actual Jivatma, and then this means one of the lectures I heard is the Ravan this time was not Jai Vijay, it was called Jalandhar, and before that it was Jai Vijay, and before that there was a Prabhas, there was someone else. So the Jivatma can be different, but to perform the pastimes, Lord has to arrange that in such a way that it will give the right atmosphere and the right scriptural details for the people who have a desire of performing bhakti. And that's the background behind it. And that 3.5 times is actually Jagai and Madhai. So Jagadanand and Madhvananda, who became the devotees eventually. So that's the, what do you call, now you can see how that puzzle fits in the right block. Does it make sense, or does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's just very difficult when you're discussing or debating with your children, and
Yes.
it's difficult because obviously you have to be very specific in that regard. So yeah.
Yeah, as I
Okay.
said in earlier discussions, we have every scripture has a Shabda Bhashya, which is a literal meaning. Then there is a Guhya Bhashya, which is meaning, and there is a Samadhi Bhashya, which is the meaning in terms of the devotional service. So when a common man, somebody who is studying at Oxford University and trying to publish the book through Oxford University Press, when they will read the scriptures, what they will get is the apparent word-to-word meaning, which is a Shabda Bhashya. And that is why Bhagavad Gita translation from Oxford University Press will give you a completely bewildering idea of what Bhagavad Gita is. Guhya Bhashya is somebody who is a transcendentalist, but who does not accept the supremacy of the Lord as a person. So they will have totally different understanding, because they will understand certain hidden meanings from Bhagavad Gita. And then there is a third person like Srila Prabhupada, who is a perfect Ragatmika Bhakti Yogi, who is giving us the correct understanding of what Bhagavad Gita is and what's the purpose of delivering the Bhagavad Gita. The Upana Vishada means spiritual master giving the instructions to the disciple, and that's what Upanishad is, the meaning of Upanishad. And Gita Upanishad is the crest jewel of Upanishad, given by the Supreme Lord himself to his most beloved disciple Arjun. And that is the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. You are not this body, you are a spirit soul. That's how Bhagavad Gita starts. But for somebody who is reading that in a more of a literal meaning, they will have a very bewildered understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So if there are no other questions, then we can stop here. Thank you, everybody. Indulekha Mataji and Dharmendra Prabhu, your questions were very wonderful, and it was purifying to me to remind something and discuss. So thank you, everybody. We will stop here.
Thank you.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha.
Yachapika
Sindhubayeva cha
patitanam
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta
jai.
Koti Vaishnava Pind ki jai,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Srila
jai,
Prabhupada ki jai.
ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Dr.
Krishna.
for your wonderful
Prayagraj
service.
Prabhuji ki jai.
No,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.